Welcome into K-State Online. I'm Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway. Middle of the week. Got some fun things on the horizon. Tomorrow, we will speak with Avery Johnson, so you'll get to see and hear that. Friday, it is KSO Classic, looking back at the 1997 Fiesta Bowl between K-State and Syracuse. But today, we have a little bit of a recruiting update for you. Not necessarily our normal one, because it's not like recruiting is the most hot of things right now. This is one of the slower times of the year. But because of everything that's gone on, and normally these places do bumps around this time of year anyway with their recruiting rankings. But on Monday, On3 and Rivals unveiled their new Rivals rankings, which will replace the On3 rankings. So there's only three that go into the industry ranking now: Rivals, 24/7, and ESPN. And what it resulted in was a bump for a number of K-State players in their Rivals rank, and then also a little bit of a bump down. Tucker Ashford went from a 90, which is a 4-star, with On3 and Rivals, to an 88, which is now a 3-star. But we also saw a couple of other guys in the class take bumps up, and K-State's class ranking as a whole took a big shot in the arm with the rankings that came out. So, Drew, you can take this wherever you think the most important place to start is, but that was kind of setting the stage for what we saw and how things might change for K-State and the outlook of this class. And in addition to that, I want to point out, I believe 24/7 just yesterday or today updated their rankings. So there's about to probably be another little bit of a shift in the industry rankings that show up. So
Yeah, I think that the first place that I would actually probably take it is just with the class ranking. There were some folks that were a little bit antsy about where the class ranking was going to end up, because there isn't necessarily like somebody that is coming in as highly ranked as Lincoln Cure was, or Avery Johnson was, or Asa Newsom was, or Gus Hawkins was at the end. But that's where I think that I'd start. The class ranking was probably in like the 60s before the Rivals rankings yesterday, and 247 doing their rankings today. Now it's hovering around 50. It's been just today since I've looked, because I look every once in a while, because we all see all these rankings get updated. It doesn't always change like their industry ranking right away. So I've been trying to figure out when this is actually going to really process through on our side of things, because I saw that Bennett Frazier was one guy that got boosted up pretty high in the 247 rankings. His ranking right now hasn't been reflected like that in his profile. But it's been 50, 51, and 52 just since I've been looking today. And I expect that it will keep going up, because, again, there are some guys that I think are still even too low. So this class, I think, will end up looking kind of like that 2024 class that was around, I think, 42, 43 by the time it was all said and done, which in a year where K-State's not taking a lot of players and kind of retooling and figuring out how they want to go about how the roster looks in a 105 or roster limit world. So I think that's a good thing. This is like a kind of like a, sometimes you have rebuilding years. This is kind of like a rebuilding class where there aren't a ton of needs right away. This is kind of a developmental class like the 2024 class was, where a lot of offensive line, a lot of guys that are probably going to take a year or two to kind of get their feet wet and then see where they're at. And I think that's a good thing. That this is where people are getting upset by what was a good class at K-State like 6 years ago. So I think that's where I'd start, is that the class ranking is going to keep improving as there's more and more film and more tape out on some of these commits. And it's just going to go up because K-State's not done yet. And that's another thing that really shifts on how you really look at what a class is like, okay, are you like done? Are you mostly done? K-State probably has spots for probably 4 high schoolers. We know that they're going to have junior college players because they always do. And then they're obviously not done because there's a portal as well. So it's going to keep going up. But the interesting thing for me is kind of how chesty and outward that KU fans and people that cover KU have been. And K-State and KU's class, despite KU doing very well in state, like we said that they would, they're ranked pretty similarly right now. And I think that's kind of interesting of how both teams have gone about it. Because, for a long time, it seemed like K-State people and everybody was kind of thinking that the sky was falling, and KU's recruiting class was ranked really highly. And well, what I said all along was K-State's class is going to continue to go up because at that time, when KU's class was ranked in like the top 10 of the country, their class was pretty much full. K-State's was nowhere near being full. So now you're kind of seeing that they're kind of coming together and in a more of a spot where they're closer to each other because KU's class is pretty much filled up. K-State's is pretty much filled up. Probably, again, only a handful of spots left for both schools. And they're both ranked pretty similarly. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, and that's going to be kind of the point that people are going to look at throughout this entire process, where I think as a whole, you trust and believe in what Chris Kleiman and his staff are doing at K-State. So you're not worried about necessarily what they're doing. But even if it doesn't matter in the long run, you still want to feel like you've got the one up on your peers. And Kansas is obviously number one there in terms of being in state and your rival. And that's going to be a point of pride for people. It's also, we know last year, when you look at what K-State did recruiting wise relative to the rest of the Big 12, were they number 3 last year? It was like
Yes.
Texas Tech and Colorado were the only ones that were ahead of them last season, I think. TCU and Colorado, excuse me. But that was TCU took a class of 31 guys. TCU had the biggest class in the Big 12 last year. And so that's where you kind of look at it and go, okay, you want to try and continue to be up there because K-State has done a nice job of building this thing back up and getting themselves in a position. So people are going to want to find a way to compare it and look at it. And so I think it's, we'll see K-State continue to kind of bump up there. As you said, they've got a lot of guys that, there are some guys that never end up get rankings. That's very rare now with the attention that's paid to it by On3 and Rivals and stuff. But you have guys that get evaluated early in the process and, they get a great ranking or a good one when they're sophomores or whatever. And then you have others that they don't get that evaluation until the summer of their going into their senior year or in their senior season where there's movers. And we've seen a lot of that from K-State, more of the latter in this class, where it's guys that are getting rankings later. And one of those guys that did saw a significant bump into his status, Maxwell Lovett, who is a wide receiver out of Colorado that K-State had added back in June. He skyrocketed, got his 4th star from Rivals, and he's now the number 2 player in the state of Colorado and the 259th player in the Rivals 300. So he made a significant jump, and he's now the highest ranked player in K-State's class if you look at the Rivals rankings.
Yeah, I'm not totally shocked by Max Lovett taking a huge jump. What does surprise me is the timing of the jump that he made. And that really makes me excited for what his ranking could look like down the line. Because usually you see these late risers that K-State has, like think Gus Hawkins, Larry Porter types. Those guys didn't get ranked in the top 300 really until after their senior film was already completed and they had already signed. Max Lovett takes his jump into the top 300 before his senior season starts. So that's one that really makes me excited because where does his ranking go from here? Does he keep going and keep climbing? Does he kind of hover in that 259 range? And that's where I also say, like, if he also drops out of the top 300, like that's nothing to like freak out about. Like that is something that like we've talked about multiple times on here, where there's going to be guys that haven't been ranked yet or are ranked low that even are committed to K-State right now that could end up in the top 300, and Max Lovett could do nothing wrong but still drop. But that's a big deal because again, adds another 4-star to K-State's roster. And again, just very, very intriguing because his ranking beforehand, I think, was like an 88 in the Rivals on three rankings. If somebody really wants to go in, there is a whole recruiting page now at Rivals where you can kind of ask the evaluators certain stuff. It's fun to go in and look at kind of like the interactions there, and if you really want to dive in and really go for it, like you can ask them like what they saw in Max Lovett or Justin Morales, as we're going to get into it. Or if you want to be on the negative side, you could really jump on them for like what was their thought process with Tucker Ashford.
Yeah, and it's a great tool that is available to people now to go and look at and test it out and take a look at the recruiting board there. It's something that hasn't really been available, and now gives you that direct plug-in, not just when the national guys are popping in to your site and giving you a quick update there. Another guy that made a big bump in the Rivals rankings got a 4th star, Justin Morales out of El Paso, Texas. We talked about him also at the start of June when he committed. He's moved himself up to his 90 ranking. So that's the 24th best interior offensive lineman in the Rivals rankings. And if you look at the industry rankings now, he's slid inside the top 500. So he is in that category of him and Tucker Ashford as being the two top 500 players when you pull in what ESPN and 24/7 and Rivals have all had to say with their evaluations. So was there any surprise that Justin Morales got the bump that he did?
Only surprise again with Morales, kind of like with Max Lovett, is just the timing of it. I had circled, underlined, explanation pointed Justin Morales' ranking as something in someone that could really explode after a senior season because his tape just pops. It's so fun, and I'm not gonna go through like the intricacies of like being an offensive lineman, but Morales just destroys dudes, and that's so fun to watch for an offensive lineman at his level. Somebody that again, because he's already taken this big jump right before his senior season begins, could even get higher. So I'm really intrigued to see where his ranking goes. Does he end up in the top 300? Does he even end up higher than Max Lovett at the end? Just very, very exciting with how his ranking is going to end up looking. Because again, he was somebody that I thought after his senior season could end up, or in the middle of it, end up going up. And I imagine we're going to talk more about like guys that I think could end up matching Max Lovett and Justin Morales later on in the process as well. Yeah, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, back in the saddle with that. Had the youngest one in here, and she's starting to get a little feisty. She's been slid out of the picture now by my wife. Yeah, it's fun when you get these new drops of information and the rankings that come out and get to see the movers, because it is kind of just evidence of what you say all along, that a lot of these guys, what their ranking is now, it is not going to stay the same. And it's good to remind people of that, because there are also guys that might be high at some point, like Tucker Ashford, and there's going to be a little bit of a drop. And it wasn't a massive drop. And if you still look at industry ranking, he's still the highest ranked player in the class for K-State. And guys not getting the 3rd or the 4th star, depending on what side they're going to fall on, it ultimately doesn't matter. Like Tucker Ashford is still a great player, and that was still a huge pickup for K-State at the moment that they got it. They needed a recruiting win, given everything that had transpired recently. They were able to come through, deliver it, and it's just, again, recruiting is not just about what you're doing to make your team better. Should it be? Yes, it absolutely should be. But we also know that a lot of recruiting is based around momentum. Like, think back to that summer where Dylan Edwards and Avery Johnson committed. And yeah, sure, down the road, Dylan Edwards decommitted, ended up going to Notre Dame briefly with his commitment. At that point, it didn't really matter. Like, you still had Avery Johnson, you still had a really good class already coming in for K-State at the time. But in the moment when you got the commitment, it was all about this momentum. And it was like, that the momentum served almost more good to K-State than even getting the commitment. And then we see, obviously, on the back end of it that Dylan Edwards still ended up in Manhattan and things seem to be going great there. So that's one of those things to keep in mind when we talk about this is, the fourth or third star, it's meaningful, and it typically will give you an idea of what somebody looks like, but also like don't stake everything that you own to just, oh, he's a 4-star, he's great now. Oh, he's a 3-star, he's bad now. That kind of thing.
No, it's one where just you can form your own opinions. Like watch the tape, because the rankings, and especially like I just did a story that will go out at some point in the near future about like best development / scouting wins at K-State. It was hard to narrow it down to 10, because if you really look, there's been so many contributors that are lower ranked in the recruiting classes for whatever reason. I mean, I think that I did the list today. 5 of the top 6 guys that I had listed as like best development / scouting wins, because so much of that is, you could just say scouting, but some of the guys just developed so much better than I think anybody possibly thought that they could have. But like I couldn't be like, oh, like Felix was just a great scout job, because he was 215 pounds and he committed at K-State and left at 255. Ben Sinnott was 210 and was a hockey player and left at 245 and as the best tight end in the modern era at K-State. Like some of that is also just development. But 5 of the top 6 guys that I had on the best development / scouting jobs that K-State has done have left early, and all of them were either like 5th from the bottom or below in their own recruiting class and ended up leaving early. Like that's pretty incredible. 2 of them didn't even have a recruiting profile. Do you know how hard that is in this day and age? Ben Sinnott and DJ Giddens barely even had recruiting profiles.
Yeah, that is tough to do in this day and age. Where I mean, I don't know, would it happen now if we knew that there was a guy out there? I mean, Sinnott probably would, just because he was a walk on. So like that's the area where you. But even then, like you think guys like that, it's hey, what? Maybe it's just because we've gotten better at it, and there's more of us now. Like it was, I don't know. It's weird to think about that Ben Sinnott wouldn't have had a profile, but yeah.
But like even like DJ Giddens, there was nothing out there about him committing to K-State until Brian Anderson posted a picture of the running backs that were on campus at that time, like before his true freshman season. That was it. Ben Sinnott at least posted something, because he was committed to South Dakota until like a week before his signing day, and then ended up flipping to be a preferred walk-on and is now in the NFL. So the rankings are fun, but I always tell people, like, if you watch your own watch on your own of like what you think of these guys and form your own opinions, because there are guys that are still, I think, ranked too low. That I have another article coming out that will be like the top 3 guys that I think could make jumps to be 4 stars in the future. Spoiler alert, 2 of them are offensive linemen.
Of course, offensive line. Just K-State continues to dominate in that department. All right, that'll do it for us today, giving a little look at some of the things going on in the recruiting space. Tomorrow, we will talk to Avery Johnson, so that'll be sometime probably around lunch when that will be wrapped up and there for everybody to view. And then Friday, KSO Classic, K-State Syracuse 1997 Fiesta Bowl, and then we'll reset with a brand new week next week as we get through the rest of July and get ready to hit the start of the season in August. Things are going to pick up a whole lot quicker here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll be able to talk about stuff that actually matters, because recruiting's important. Yeah, I know, but I still side with a lot of you out there as well that it's not the most entertaining thing at times. Like games are a lot more fun. I think we can all agree. And that's what you really care about at the end of the day, is that these players that, care as much what they do when they're 17, 18 years old. You care what they're doing when they're 21 and that they're wearing purple and it's wins on the scoreboard.
And especially right now, there's just not a lot going on. There before the rankings got updated, we were even talking about just not doing a recruiting show this week.
Yeah, we'll see what next week brings. Maybe basketball will drop something on us. That'd be a good way to go and look over at KSO right now. So head over to On3 and do that, because our Derek Young did drop a little insight as to what's going on with the basketball program and where
You
some of
also get to
their
see a whole non-conference basketball schedule on KSO.
That's true. You get to do that as well. You're not doing that anywhere else. So go do that right now if you want to get in the know with what's going on with K-State. Also, plenty of great things that we've been doing in the offseason. Our regular series that go every week throughout the year, but we've had Mount Rushmore's going on. That's provided a lot of conversation about linebackers. Most recently, we're doing tight ends. I think tomorrow is when
Yeah,
tight ends go.
tight
So
end, holy moly, is it kind of rough?
yeah, after Ben Sinnott, it's gonna get probably a little dicey there. I mean, just thinking this out loud. Again, this is without diving into the numbers or anything, but you talk about like the iconic nature that you need to have with being on a Mount Rushmore. Like, is Travis Tannehill going to make an appearance? Because I greatly associate him with the 2011 and 2012 teams. Like, it's going to be fascinating to see how it ends up working out, and it's again not as easy
And,
for
and like you also like go way back, and like the guys that you really associate tight ends with, like early on, or like Henry Childs and Paul Kaufman. Like what do we do with those guys?
yeah, Paul Kaufman probably has to be in the mix. Also tough because the only position in which K-State has never produced an All-American is tight end. So there's not even like a little cheat to go off of there where you can kind of break down the list from a quick basis. Now this is going to be pouring over a lot of different things the next couple of hours and determining. So I'm sure people will enjoy that because we clearly have no clue hours before it needs to be done. So that means that it's going to be a tough call for a lot of people there. Some of the ones I thought were easy calls, people still had some bugaboos about, which makes it all the more fun to see. More than anything, yeah, I enjoy the arguments and the disagreements, but just getting to see everybody's perspectives and what they associate with K-State football and these different positions and eras is a lot of fun to see as well. This current era of K-State football is getting ready to head over to Ireland, so go to cats2ireland.com for your travel, ticket, and hospitality information if you want to be there on August 23rd to watch the 2025 Aer Lingus College Football Classic. It's cats, the number 2, Ireland.com. We will get out of here back again tomorrow talking to the quarterback of the Cats, Avery Johnson, on K-State Online.